Hello everyone, my name is Foteini Giannopoulou and I'm a graduate student at Yonsei GSIS pursuing a master's in global economy and strategy. I have worked in the field of education in the past, and especially during the pandemic I realized the importance of a digital transition when it comes to education and the learning processes. I don't have a previous background in education technology specifically. I really became more familiar with education technology by being here in Korea with technological innovations everywhere surrounding you, and being a student during the pandemic with online classes during Zoom. It was something that I not only became familiar with, but I really do have a passion for, and I want to learn more. There are many definitions about education technology. I think the most common one is that education technology, or edtech, is the combined use of computer software, hardware, and educational theory and practice, which facilitates learning. Education technology is also based on knowledge from various fields: psychology, communication, computer science, and of course educational theory. Because it encompasses several domains, it's something very unique. So education technology is how people use their discoveries so far to satisfy or enhance the educational process. I think that there are 3 to 4 main types of education. The first two have to do with synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous means learning at the same time, simultaneously. More specifically, it means that students are online at the same time with the teachers. It does have a live feedback aspect to it that is very important. On the other hand, when we're talking about asynchronous learning, it means learning in different times. The teachers and the students may be on different time zones, and the learning can include lectures, videos that students had created, or seminars that don't happen in real time. Students can go through in their own time. The next type of education technology is linear learning. Linear learning is when information is given in a linear and static manner. For example, such as reading a book, or I think specifically computer-based training, which can include videos, animations, and even audio clips. It's more about information being sent to students through computers, tablets, smartphones that enhance this learning experience. And the final type of education technology is collaborative learning, when students or learners work with other people, other students, to achieve a common goal. So it's like problem solving, learning new tasks, which you do in groups. And you can either collect data, you can listen to others' thoughts. It's a more interactive process. I do think that there are a lot of positive aspects to education technology. Number one that I've come across in my work and my experience is that students are a lot more engaged in the learning process. It could be an educational video that the professor decided to showcase during class. It could even be using interactive tools like Kahoot. I don't know if you are aware or familiar with Kahoot, but it's basically a very fun app that you can use quizzes online. Through a gamification process, the students learn in a more interactive and fun way about the material. The process is a lot more exciting, it's a lot more interactive, and the students not only feel motivated and energized by technology in the classroom, but they also participate in active learning. So imagine how more immersive the learning experience becomes through the use of technology. Another thing that I would like to mention, you have to remember that education doesn't only take place in the classroom. I've been working in the social entrepreneurship sector in the field of education, and education comes in many different types and forms. You can learn in informal settings, especially through non-formal education. So, for example, during the pandemic, when everyone started using technology, I was working for a social enterprise called Kinitro, and our main project was Labyrinth of Senses, which has to do with disability awareness. And we educated people about social rights, about disability and accessibility. And we came across technology and technological tools in various forms, and we managed to enhance our workshops with virtual reality. It made me realize how much more engaging the process can become for young people. And especially working with people with a disability or marginalized youth or youth from low-income areas, these people lack the confidence in themselves that they have these skills. So, for example, imagine how it would be if you could use virtual reality to, let's say, have a simulation of an interview and help these young people gain the confidence and skills to go out there and get the job. Because virtual reality and experiential learning together can give you this environment where it's a safe space. You can learn without worrying about having to make mistakes. Because in my case, I think the most important thing when it comes to education is to learn from your mistakes. Another very important advantage, I would say, that education technology has is that it can accommodate a variety of learning styles. Many people are more familiar with auditory learning, like listening to a podcast or even listening to the lecture, just auditory cues. Other people like myself are more happy learning with visual cues, videos, aesthetically pleasing PowerPoints, that's one of my favorite types. Just anything that has to do with images. And then finally, another type of learning is tactile learning, where students or learners prefer to touch stuff, like maybe a screen or a mouse on the laptop, just scrolling through different types of media. So there are many different types of learning styles that technology can accommodate. So that's definitely another big advantage. Another advantage of education technology, which might be controversial when I say it, is that it promotes collaboration. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking that, oh my God, what is he saying? When I think of technology, I picture someone in a room isolated from everybody else, just typing on their keyboard. And I'm here to tell you that, at least in my personal experience, it was very different. When I was a student in high school, I had the chance to use the school's computers and collaborate with students from Spain through digital platforms. At the time, it was eTwinning and Wiki Spaces. So basically, we went online, everyone in their own time, and we communicate and exchange ideas about what an ideal European city that was inclusive would look like in the future. So it was a very collaborative educational process where everyone learned. We had the chance to meet a year later, but the whole educational process was online. And I never felt alone in that. When students are willing to exchange information and talk about what they learned and share their experiences, I think this is something that promotes collaboration in online environments. When it comes to education, a big part that we need to remember is that education is there to prepare students for their future lives, either for their everyday lives, to go out there and become active parts of the community, but also work and go out there and compete in the job market. And students nowadays are basically digital natives. They were born with smartphones in their hands. Education needs to be able to adapt to the needs of the students, the needs of the future job market. So teachers, the educational system needs to be able to adapt and adjust to these new technological innovations. When it comes to education technology, it's the best way to prepare students for the future. And I think it's one of the biggest advantages. Finally, one big advantage is that education technology makes the learning process a lot more immersive and a lot more engaging and fun for the student. Me personally, if I'm not having fun or if I'm not engaged with the material or even the subject, it's very difficult for me to retain information. And there are studies that show that students retain information when they're actually having fun and they're engaged with the material. I think that one disadvantage that most people think is that education technology is here to replace traditional or conventional education. I don't actually agree with that. Education technology isn't panacea. It's not here to replace the teacher. It's here as a means to help enhance the educational process. So education technology can help facilitate that process easier, faster, and in a more engaging way. Another disadvantage that I do understand is that education technology requires management and training, especially for teachers or professors who are older and are not used to using new technological inventions or innovations in the learning process. And I know, coming from Greece, where, as I mentioned before, the educational system was not prepared for going to online environments, the teachers and the professors did not have the time, the resources, and the right processes to learn how to use technology. Another disadvantage comes in when it comes to tech disparity. So you can't expect public high schools to have the same resources as private high schools. You have students that come from low-income families and they go to school to low-income areas, and the education system is not prepared they don't have technological innovations in the classroom, while some other private universities or private high schools and schools do have that. So it does create a big inequality, a gap. For that reason, it's up to the governments to facilitate more equal or equitable learning processes. Here, I think that cost is something that should also be discussed, because tech disparity has to do a lot with cost, as we mentioned. It is a lot more expensive to use a digital whiteboard than the conventional chalkboard that schools use, or having new computers in the library in a university. I know that coming from Greece and the libraries we had there to Korea, which is filled with technological innovations, it's a really big difference. So I do understand that cost is a big problem that needs to be tackled as well. I would say that what most people think is a disadvantage is that education technology has less face time or contact with the teachers, which is a kind of truth if you think about the pandemic and how the learning process transferred to online environments through Zoom or other platforms. But on the other hand, it was a necessity that technology helped facilitate, because without technology, I don't see how, especially during lockdown or the first few months of the pandemic, how education could go on in a secure and safe way. In this case, as I mentioned before, technology is a means to enhance the learning process and not completely replace it. So the teachers, the professors, they're still not going to be replaced. They're just going to be able to use technology to enhance the educational process. There are many advantages and many disadvantages when it comes to education technology, but especially when it comes to disadvantages, adopting these new technologies, their cost, or making it in a fair, just, and equitable way. But I do believe that the advantages do outweigh the disadvantages. When I think about the future of education technology, I think very short term. So in the next 5 years, I think that virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and other technological trends are going to be a lot more mainstream, hopefully be incorporated into curriculum and classrooms. A great example of this that I've been reading on lately is about China. So as you know, China is very technologically advanced, and in 2019 they built 100 state facilities that promote virtual reality. They even have primary schools in Jiangxi where primary school students actually learn through virtual reality. This is something that China does in general. They start implementing technological innovation on a very local level, and then if this has good results and it works, they start elevating it, and if it turns into a best practice, it goes to a national level. And I think this is a great way to foster innovation and have technological innovations become a lot more mainstream. And China's example is something that a lot more countries could learn how to follow. When it comes to higher education, for example, Stanford University, they have this class for 20 years. It's called Virtual People. And last year, it was the first time that they actually had a full virtual class in the metaverse. That is something very cool to think of virtual reality, metaverse being a constant in the educational process. It's something that really amazes me and makes me excited about what's to come. Talking about the metaverse, and if you ask me why this is important to me, why education technology is important to me, because I have a passion for both education and technology. I'm currently working with the Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs on digital public diplomacy. And digital public diplomacy has to do with public diplomacy, so culture, policies, and how Korea promotes this abroad. And since it's digital, it has to do with online environments. Just working for the last 6 months on that specific job, it really made me feel how many similarities there are with education technology, because when you make policies accessible for youth online, it's really as if you are using educational media or technological media to teach students about intercultural understanding or political exchange. In my head, it was something that I really enjoyed, and it really seemed a lot similar to education technology. One instance that really made me go mind blown was when in October, so last month, we had the chance to facilitate the Global Korea's festival in the metaverse. So basically more than 800 participants, 800 young people from all over the world gathered together in the metaverse because they had this passion for learning more about culture and specifically Korean culture. So just to have this event in the metaverse, I don't think I would be able to have that experience anywhere else except Korea. So yeah, I'm just really, really excited to see what's to come. And I'm really glad that I'm in Korea at this time during the pandemic with so many technological innovations everywhere. I mean, it was the first time that I had a coffee made by a robot barista was in Korea. And it just, every time it makes me think, what else can we do in the future?